Hi, everyone. My name is Taha, and today we are going to take a look back at 2020, the year that changed everything. But before we do that, I would like to take a little time to do a land acknowledgement. I would like to start today by acknowledging that this presentation is given to people on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. And now I would like to introduce myself. My name is Taha. I am the youth friendly coordinator for Apathy is Boring, which is a nonprofit charity organization in Canada. In my role with Apathy is Boring, I make sure to connect with organizations, government bodies, and institutions to let them know how they can do a better job at including youth voices in making sure that their decisions that they're taking that can impact you have your say in them. And aside from that, before I started my work with Apathy is Boring, I was very, very involved in my community as I was the former youth ambassador for Côte des Neiges and Notre Dame de Grâce in Montreal. And that's where my passion for community work comes from. Apathy is Boring, as I said before, is a nonprofit charity organization in Canada. And it was founded long ago in 2004 by a choreographer, a filmmaker, and a fashion photographer. They all came together at a party and realized when they started talking that none of their friends actually were involved in any way in democracy. So they started an online campaign to mobilize youth vote for the 2004 federal election. Fast forward today in 2021, Apathy is Boring is working year-round to support and educate youth to become active and contributing citizens in Canada's democracy. Now, to us, democracy is not just about going out and voting. It's really about setting up youth to take charge of the conditions that they live in. We believe that youth belong in any place where decisions are being made for them, and that are going to impact them, because young people are naturally thinking outside of the box and they're driving innovation. They have ideas that no one has thought of before, and they are ready to contribute to make sure that our society progresses forward. Young people have very strong problem solving skills that can be useful in changing or creating new policies that benefit their communities, because they are living so close to everything that's impacting them. And also, lastly, but not least, young people aged 15 to 35 make up the largest group in Canada's population. When 2020 hit and COVID came along, they were also the largest population that were going through all of the issues that were worsened by the pandemic. Today, we're going to be looking at three of those issues. So, we're going to be looking at how the 2020 pandemic has created a huge crisis on youth leaving the care system, on youth mental health, and how it has completely exacerbated the homelessness and the homeless crisis in Toronto, especially when it came to youth. Jill Dunlop, an MPP politician, says that we know that COVID-19 has put immense pressure on all Ontarians, including youth in care and of children's aid societies and the child welfare system. At a time like this, no young person should be worried about losing their support system. So mentioned here are child aid societies and child welfare system. These are systems that are put in place to help youth who don't have parents or any other support systems. But when you get to the age of 18, you actually age out of that system. And maybe them leaving the care system should be based on whether they're ready and able to build a life afterwards, regardless of if there's a COVID-19 crisis happening or not. The second point that we're going to touch on today is going to be youth mental health. The Center for Addiction and Mental Health states that this generation of children and young people is making unprecedented calls for help amid rising anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and self harm that is undermining their academics, personal relationships, and careers. People may say that youth are always on their screens. Yes, but they're also going out. They're also talking to their peers, talking to their teachers. They may be people who are providing you with things that your parents are not, like a secure space to express your gender identity, your confusions about gender identity, your thoughts that might not bode well with your family situation. And prolonged situations where you don't have access to your safe spaces and your friends can cause you to think about self harm, and suicidal thoughts may just follow. But that they wouldn't have had they had that kind of connection and support from the people that they find outside of their homes. The next topic that we're going to talk about is the youth homeless crisis. COVID-19 appears to be worsening an already difficult situation for youth who are experiencing or have experienced homelessness. Almost 20% of Canada's homeless population are youth from the ages of 13 to 24. Any given night, you can find approximately 2,000 youth sleeping outside when services were already provided at a limited capacity before the pandemic hit. In cases where shelters are overcrowded all over the country, especially in Toronto, there's no space for social distancing that is a required restriction by the government. And so, how is the community organizing around this to make sure that they do have the basic needs that they have? And these 2,000 kids don't have to sleep outside. Nobody asks or nobody wants to be homeless, especially a kid. Systems let people down all the time, and circumstances make it really hard for them to get back on their feet. I think it's important to understand that we can't think that these issues that we've named are isolated incidences. They all exist in ways that are interconnected and just make it so much worse for people going through them. They can happen to anyone, and they can happen to everyone, and they can happen all at once to so many people. So, who's there to pick you up if so many things are working against you, especially navigating these kind of issues as a person of color, as an indigenous youth, as a youth identifying in the LGBT community? Those are overrepresented. These are identities that are overrepresented in each of these cases. And when we say hindsight is 2020, it's because it opens your eyes in who's doing the work out there. And that is your community organization. And so what now, right? Like, what do you do? And that's where you come in with community support and organizations that are led by youth. Like, think about the youth design jam sessions led by the Young Ontarians United, that literally invites people from all over Ontario, all youths, and being like, hey, what's going on? What's your issue? How do we solve this? Programs like the Pivot 2020 program by Youthful Cities, the Youth Policymakers Hubs program by the OCIC. And we have organizations like the Civic Action Leadership Foundations who are hosting events that invite youth to discuss and share what they learned, what they see, and what they hope that they can contribute. And that's why, as Apathy is Boring, we made sure that our community lens, even though we're a national organization, is very strong. We knew that 2020 was going to be a really dark time online. So we shifted our focus to make sure that we can create these pockets of positivity in your online experience. But we can also, as our mandate, connect you to information that you need in order to live your best life. Take an example of when the Black Lives Matter movement started and the protests started all over Canada. We wanted to make sure that we had content that was designed to equip you with information about your rights to express yourself, to protest, but also tips on how to do it in a safe way because COVID. Another way that we were able to still connect with youth is that we made all of our in person events online. That meant that our programming, where we got youth from the 7 cities across Canada to come together and make a project that usually led to an event, they turned it into podcasts. Turned it into websites that everyone can access. This is an opportunity for me to let you know that the first step of taking care of your community is to stay informed of what their needs are, but to also kind of step back and kind of look at what your needs are. Take care of yourself, know what's out there, and then get on to contributing to your community. So I listed a few organizations here and initiatives, but they're not the only things that are happening in your city. Make sure to look at the list of all of the resources and all the amazing organizations that are doing hands-on work to make sure that their community, their neighbors, everyone is taken care of. When I'm talking about youth in care, they can check out Project Outsiders. It's a new initiative completely led by youth who used to be in the foster care system. We also have Natives, Child and Family Services of Toronto working so hard to make sure that youth who are on the streets and who don't have a home, who don't have a meal, have something that they can hold on to get them through this pandemic. And that's what community organizations do. That's what charities do. And that's why they also need our support. That's the whole point of being a part of a community. It's that it's not about one person, it's about everyone working together, to be better together. So, thank you so much for being a part of this little time that we had together to go over how 2020 took over our lives and that we survived. So, congratulations. But thank you so much. My name was Taha. I am working with Apathy is Boring, and I hope that you have a wonderful 2021.